Hello, guys. Welcome to the Wealth Rebel Show. I am your host, your resident Wealth Rebel, Emma Wright. And today I have the absolute pleasure of bringing you Dan Parkinson. And now I just want to tell you a little bit of a story about how Dan and I met. Because Dan and I hope you don't mind me saying this, Dan, we're both really super spiritual. And I really do believe that things just happen for a reason. And back in 2022, I met Steve Conley and it really changed my life. I started to do the Academy of Life Planning. I discovered Ikigai and the whole experience with Steve probably actually completely and utterly shook my world up, if I'm honest. It's one of the things that shook my world up. Um, I decided to learn scuba diving. That was one of my life-changing goals. And off the back of that, my whole life has transformed. And then I'm in North Devon, as you do, and I get a little email pop in from Dan Parkinson, like, oh, like Steve said we should connect. Oh, it might have been on LinkedIn. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, great. I love meeting new people. And you wanted to talk about um the financial advice world, right? And you then came all the way to North Devon for a cup of tea in Node. And I don't think we spent a single minute talking really much about financial advice. And we just talked about spirituality, which was incredible because, by the way, that's all I really like talking about these days, which doesn't really lend a hand to financial advice. And you were about to embark at the time on learning your financial advice qualifications, or you were already doing them and trying to decide which path to take, and you had yet to experience the magic of Steve, right? So, we were brought together by the very fact, I believe, that yes, Steve was a catalyst, but actually we were meant to meet because we're on this path of enlightenment, I do believe. And what I wanted to talk to you about today, obviously, you're going to be coming back, Dan, multiple times to share your wisdom with the Wealth Rebel show. And within the Star Portal, you come into the Star Portal and you talk very openly about alternative investing and things like that, things like crypto. And we're going to talk about crypto today. But fundamentally, you know, you're now on your own Ikigai journey. And I really wanted to talk to you a little bit about your Ikigai story, really get to know you, as this is like the first time where well, introducing you into the world. You want to be known as the personal finance specialist. I'd love to know what that means. You have also got your beautiful business, the Wild Men project, which again I just absolutely adore and love. So welcome firstly to the Wealth Rebels show, my love.
What an introduction. Thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, I completely feels like a world ago last summer driving through North Devon on my way to Cornwall to connect with you. And yeah, as you mentioned, I was undecided between going down the regulated financial route with one of the large umbrella companies in the UK, or going through the Academy of Life Planning and helping people to find their own ikigai, and then actually doing full fat, holistic financial planning for people rather than product sales for a large company. And you gave me, I think we spoke about it for about 5 minutes out of the hour when we met. And you were actually one of the few. Most people were telling me to go down the Academy of Life Planning route. Obviously, Steve was. He believes in it 100%. But to me, it felt a lot like people who had done sort of 10, 20 years in the regulated world, sold a business, and then didn't need to rely on this to generate an income for them. And it was more them giving back after working for 20 years in quite a sort of 3D environment and very, money oriented. But you were actually one of the few that said, no, go and experience that for yourself. Um, and I think someone someone said that I wouldn't last a year. I can't remember who it was. Someone was, they were like, you won't do a year in there. And then after 5 months. I think I was back on darkening Steve's doorstep, saying that I wanted to do the Academy of Life Planning course with a view to then helping people either to find their own ikigai, or if they just want financial planning, I can do that as well.
So you're saying it's my fault you've wasted this time in your life, right? But it's quite enlightening the fact that we only talked about it for 5 minutes because fundamentally, what we talked about for the most of it, whilst we were talking about spirituality, really for me is ikigai. Because ikigai, I'd love to know what your take on what ikigai is. Because people listening to this for the show for the first time will probably be going, "What the flip is ikigai? This guy's going on about ikigai." But fundamentally, I'd love to know what you think ikigai is and your definition of it. But the more I do this, it's all about self. It's all about knowing yourself. It's all about if you could cut yourself down the middle and you could read yourself like a piece of rock, it's really knowing who you are, what you have come to experience, and then what you came to unleash, your impact, so that you can put things into the world that are needed, that are going to be game changing. And so, and I do believe that whilst my advice was to go in, I do believe you had to experience it for yourself because you can't experience the light. So the light is over here with what you're doing now in your new world. You can't experience the light unless you've experienced the darkness, the 3D, the money orientated part of it. And also for me, I still work with people in that space because people do sometimes need regulated advice. I had Rebecca Robertson on the show recently. It's also when you're in that space, seeing the light, seeing the really good people that are in there, so that when people do need advice, they do need regulated advice on the pensions, the ISAs, I can confidently go to the good ones, right? And
Mhm.
because there are many, many people that sadly, and I don't believe it's their fault, but I just believe that they're not awake, they're not awakened, or they're in a system and they've been brainwashed into believing that there's no other way for people to manage their wealth being way more than money. So, yeah, I hope you don't think that I kind of led you down a garden path, but I think that sometimes you just have to experience that for yourself. And yeah, I probably was sat there also in the background thinking, you won't last a year, not because you won't last a year because you can't, but because I could feel your energy of the things that you want to put into the world and you have a voice. And sadly, you can't really speak your truth always in that environment, and give people what they need, which often isn't a product at all. And that's one of the things that I've learned from Steve. Tell me before we dive into it then, what does ikigai mean to you? What has your ikigai story been then? Because I think when you understand what you embody when it comes to ikigai, what does ikigai mean to you?
I think the primary word is purpose. So it's to have a goal, to be working towards something. Um, and I think that's especially important for men. Like not to discount that it's important for women, but I think a lot of the ills within society, especially for men under the age of 25, is that they are without purpose, without goal. And a large part of that is to do with, well, most of it actually comes back to the devaluation of our money. We'll come on to that a bit later. Um, but yeah, so for me, purpose, and obviously then there's the classical description of the nexus point of what are you good at? What does the world need? What can you get paid for? And what's fulfilling for your soul? And actually the best way I think for people to visualize this, and I've worked in this environment for 15 years in advertising and marketing and ad tech. Most people work in three. So they can do what, and that was certainly the case for me. So I worked in a space that was the world needed it, I was good at it, and I could get paid for it, but it wasn't fulfilling to the soul at all. And so that dark night of the soul started in sort of April 2019. I got quite sick, Right. My body rebelled after 10 years of being abused because I was working 60, 70 hours a week, hiding from this sort of gnawing feeling in the background that something wasn't right. So I was using work as a distraction from that feeling. And then at the weekends, I would burn the candle at both ends and party hard because if I wasn't at work, then what was I, what was I doing? That feeling was still there in the background. And eventually that caught up with me. And so I went on a bit of a journey to find my ikigai. Ended up in Rio for a while, ended up in Lebanon for 3 years, training under, I was started by volunteering in refugee camps, teaching English and football for a year, and then met a spiritual group while I was there and a guru. So I stuck around with those guys, retrained as a financial advisor during that, went down a deep rabbit hole of Bitcoin and crypto, tried to figure out how I could get paid for that because I was just burning through savings while I was living in Lebanon for 3 years, didn't work. And then eventually found my way to financial advice. Wish I had found the Academy of Life Planning while I still lived in Lebanon, because this was 2, 3 years ago, and I could have spent that time building a personal brand, building clients, and probably have stayed in Lebanon. But I wasn't made aware of that. The only route that I was made aware of was the regulated financial advice route, which meant I had to come back to the UK. My clients had to be in the UK, which are, as you well know, having gone through the Academy of Life Planning, it's cross-border, so you can live anywhere and your clients can be anywhere because it is more focused on the ikigai side of things, whilst also then incorporating a financial element and how people are going to build a plan to meet their new life. Um, and yeah, so that's really how I found my way here. I'm in the process of leaving this umbrella organization, the regulated advice, and setting up two new businesses which are focused on my ikigai, which are a B2C business focused at sort of retail clients to either just do financial advice or do the full financial life planning with them to find their ikigai. And secondly, I'm starting a B2B business to with three objectives. So one is to educate financial advisors on Bitcoin, why they and their clients need Bitcoin, why it's imperative that they educate themselves on Bitcoin. Secondly, to put pressure on the FCA to change Bitcoin's classification, because in this country, Bitcoin is classed as a mass market instrument, which is exactly the same as unicorn fart coin. So the FCA believes that those two coins have the exact same risk profile, which is just utter nonsense. So Bitcoin, I don't think it's bad advice to say you should probably buy Bitcoin. Unicorn fart coin, you can buy it. I mean, I certainly wouldn't, and I wouldn't recommend it. So, but the FCA seem to think that they're the same thing. So the second, objective of this new business is to put pressure on the FCA to change the classification because we're falling behind the rest of the world when it comes to Bitcoin specifically. And then the third one will be to sell workshops and training, and that's really my ikigai. Whenever I've done this exercise in the last 3 or 4 years, and I write down the 10 things that I can do that I am 1 in 10 in. So I believe in after six, you become 1 in 1 million, then it's 1 in 10 million. So I believe if you write down 10 things that you can do and nine others can't out of 10, that makes you I think you're the only person in the universe, if it's 1 in 10. One of mine is keeping up football. I've no idea how I monetize that, but I'm pretty good at it. But whenever I do those 10, it comes back to Bitcoin, talking about
Yeah, here's a
Bitcoin, the
challenge.
importance
You're
of
going to have to
Bitcoin,
do your Bitcoin with your yuppies at the same time,
do some
right?
sort of workshop
The
training with a
leverage.
Bitcoin.
That's going to supercharge and leverage even more. Like it's going to be like, yeah, you can teach Bitcoin, but can you do it at the same time as doing keepy uppies? Oh, Dan, I love that so much because firstly, the reason it didn't happen in Lebanon, come on, is because it wasn't meant to be. That wasn't your soul's journey. A big
Mm,
part of the process eventually leads you to full surrender of following your completely and utterly always following your intuition and making sure that you are just completely and utterly living a life in love, in your heart, putting into the world things that you intuitively know. And it's stepping into trust. The more I do this, the more, yes, I'm aware of I create the 8-step framework that I was already doing and slotted in some of this stuff into what I was already doing, right, intuitively. But it's given me the power to lean more into that trust. But from a spiritual awakened perspective, having been through many dark nights of the souls in 2024, they are flipping painful. It wasn't meant to be. You were meant to the this place. You were meant to go on this journey, and meant, we just have to know that life happens for us, not to us, because it
Mhm.
might not have led you to having the deeper insight that you now have. So I always believe that you didn't come across Steve until the divine moment, and you were meant to sit on that fence and sit in that coffee shop with me in North Devon and then go on this journey that you've been. We just had a minor break there because the powers of B came in and crashed my laptop, literally, as we were talking to the very beautiful Dan here about the fact that it wasn't meant to be at that time. I do believe sometimes when energy comes in to disrupt a conversation, I'm a big believer in that. So you haven't destroyed us. We've got the evidence of the first part of the conversation, and I'm actually quite good at wizardry pokery and putting things together. So we'll continue. If you're wondering that the conversation did kind of get a little bit disrupted, then it did. And that maybe is what was meant to happen. So in Lebanon, it wasn't meant to be. And now, one thing you did say that I really wanted to touch on was the fact that men in particular are losing their purpose. And I do believe this. So you might have noticed, Dan, that I'm specializing in working with men. I've worked with men for a really long time because I have a really big belief that it's gone too far one way in terms of certain aspects of female, male and male balance. And I do believe very strongly in supporting men to have their purpose and to get out into the world. I've been working with men in the background for a really long time, and I've come out. I feel like I'm coming out of a closet or something for myself as I've delved into my own ikigai. So let's go deeper on this because, I'd love to know. Obviously, I want to dive into your thoughts on the devaluation of our currency. And, we were going to talk about maybe the rise and fall of crypto and why, we really need to learn about crypto and why maybe the FCA is so kind of against allowing this currency or this coin or whatever you want to call it. I know you know that these things aren't always a currency necessarily. It's an energy, it's about mining. Because you've educated me on this. So let's dive into a little bit more about why you are now doing what you're doing in your own purpose and how you will ultimately make money from it because money is just an exchange. Let's go deeper into this for you. That's okay.
Okay. So yeah, so my ikigai is where I really get lit up is talking about Bitcoin. I want to be very, very clear on the separation between crypto and Bitcoin. So as David Sachs recently came out on TV in the US and said, and he's if anyone doesn't know who David Sachs is, he's the crypto czar within the White House administration. And the US is building a crypto stockpile and a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So the difference there is strategic reserves you sit on and you never sell. Stockpiles are there to be used. So all of the XRP, Solana, ETH, all of the other coins that you've heard of or not heard of that the US currently holds are in the stockpile, and Bitcoin is in the strategic reserve. And David Sachs came out and said that Bitcoin is classed as a commodity and all of the other cryptos are not. Right. So I believe that they're securities, tokens, whatever. So the way to think of this is Bitcoin is digital gold, right? So decentralized, no marketing department, no CEO, it's a commodity. The rest of them are securities, They're tech companies that have their own crypto token. It's the way to think about them. They have a CEO. They are centralized. They have marketing teams. They have lobbying teams. They're not the same. Um, if people want to go and buy crypto, do your own research, have fun. It is gambling, right? You're walking into a casino. You might pick the right one. You probably won't, right? The odds are not in your favor. Bitcoin, people need to start thinking about Bitcoin as their long-term store of value. So um, Bitcoin is the idea and the essence of Bitcoin, the energy of it, is the separation of government and state. And I want to give you a really very quick reasoning as to why that's important, right? Up until the late sort of 1800s, we used gold and we backed our currencies with gold. Throughout the 1800s, money was deflationary, prices went down, technology went increased, and living standards went through the roof because you can't just create more gold out of anywhere. It's hard money, it's strong money. We then came off the gold standard. Europe came off the gold standard during the First World War in order to fund the First World War because they ran out of money that was backed by gold. So they just decoupled from gold and printed more money. The US unilaterally came off the gold standard in 1971, and living standards have collapsed ever since. And the best way to think of this is imagine you and I are playing a game of Monopoly, and at any point, I can give myself more money from the bank, but you can't. Is that a fair game? Is that a game that you want to keep playing with me? If every time I'm like, hey, let's play Monopoly, and you're like, why? Every time we play Monopoly, you just give yourself more money and then you buy all of the assets on the board. Why would I want to play Monopoly with you?
Yeah.
I lose every time. So now imagine the government is the one controlling the bank, giving themselves all the money, buying all the assets. You physically can't win. Bitcoin is the separation of government and money, or state and money, and that's only a recent thing, right? We seem to think we're 100 years into this Keynesian economics experiment, but because we've had 3 or 4 generations of it, we're like, well, this is just the way it is. Inflation is the way of the world. And it's total nonsense. Until the late 1800s, we had gold, the world prices were deflationary, there was the separation of government and money or state and money, and living standards exploded. So that's where that's how you need to think of Bitcoin. It is your hedge against governments controlling your money. It's your hedge against you're playing a game of Monopoly with the government, and they can unilaterally just give themselves more money from the bank whenever they want. And as a consequence, the price of all of the, of Old Kent Road and Mayfair and Park Lane, the price of those go through the roof every time the government gives itself more money. Of course it would. There's more money in the game. It's just that you and I don't have it.
I love the way that you describe this because it really, I really am intuitive when it comes to this shit, right? Because for a long time, nothing has made sense to me. As I've worked my way through investment banking, going, this does not flipping make sense. This is bullshit, right? I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm getting really angry. I can feel my whole body and beingness as you are talking. Nothing has made sense to me in my existence in this world. And I believe that's why I came here, because I'm here to be the wealth rebel, right? In some way, to raise these conversations. I might not know it all, but I can really strongly, intuitively connect to someone that's talking bullshit and someone that's talking actual sense. And for a really long time, I've been feeling the urge to to buy gold. And I mean, I'm curious about that as well, because it's like you're telling me Bitcoin is the digital gold. And now, I remember when we were on a call a few weeks ago, I was like, Dan, just show me how to buy some Bitcoin. I don't need to know. You felt really passionate to go, before you do that, I really need you to listen to the story. And I'm like, I don't need to know the story. My soul doesn't need to know certain things because my soul knows things. And I trust at the deepest level when I connect with people that they're not bullshitting me, or they are, and I can feel it. And I will walk away from things without even realizing why I did that in 2004, when I got my first job in the stock market, I had a choice to do equity or credit derivatives. And I sat there, and as these fancy pants people with all these like really fancy kind of screens were talking about how amazing credit derivatives were, I'm going, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm not going. And I just went into equity derivatives. I loved it. I loved it so much. It made sense to me what it was that we were creating and the fast forward to 2008. I remember sitting on the trading floor going, told you all it was a load of shit, right? Sorry for my language, but I feel really passionate about this, right? I don't need to know it all, but I wanted to know a few weeks ago how to buy Bitcoin because my whole beingness had been poisoned against it. Because I believe, especially in the UK, we are being held in a dark cloud. If you go and listen to my conversation with George H. Lewis, an astrologer in the US that's used to go to school with Prince William and Harry, he's left, is in the US because America first. He wanted to be out there so he could speak his truth, and he couldn't do that over here. He believes strongly that in the UK, we're being held in a system of fear. And I
Mhm.
think that that is one of the reasons why the FCA is still trying to keep Bitcoin out of our economy as a unicorn fart coin, right? Let's wake up, guys, because we can buy it. I've you helped me to learn about some platforms. I've been trying to educate myself on various platforms. We talk about this deeply in the Star Portal. We are, and you're obviously going to be running your own education program, which is going to be amazing. I want to learn more about it because I learn more, even though I don't always need to know the story. I do love the story as well. I just at that point in time, I was like, I was so desperate to buy. It sounds really desperate, doesn't it? £100 of Bitcoin because I wanted to have something in reserve. I also bought some other of the things that we talked about because I felt like having a bit of a gamble as well, and I understood that, it might be that I want to do other things because I'm really curious about understanding the nature of volatility and how these things work. For me, it's a little bit of a game of Monopoly. This whole experience of our soul is a game of Monopoly, let's just face it, but that's going into an even deeper level. So I love it. I just love the way that you describe it. I understand it, and it's time. It is time that we all started participating and building up our reserve for ourselves, which leads me nicely on to the next question of am I right having some gold literally in my cupboard in a safe before you think of coming and robbing me, or or digitally online in on the platforms, what is the difference between holding physical gold as an asset and holding Bitcoin? Is there any difference if it is a commodity at the end of the day?
Great question. Um, I'll preface it by saying that Bitcoin is better than gold in almost every aspect. And I'll just dig into a couple that I can off the top of my mind. So portability. If you need to get up and run, like gold is an amazing hedge against things like the collapse of fiat currencies, the collapse of governments, the collapse of state control of your money. So if we get something like CBDCs, which is essential, so central bank digital currencies, which is essentially programmable money, right? That can be abused. That can say things like this pound can only be spent on these things, and it can only be spent on these things within 90 days. You want to buy anything else, you can't. And if you want to hold it for more than 90 days, you can't. And that's an extreme example, but it's potentially, there are cases like that in the world already of that happening. So gold is your hedge against all of those things. But so is Bitcoin. And you don't need to store Bitcoin in your safe in your house or in a safety deposit box in a bank. And if you need to run, like if you want to escape to America, good luck sewing more than like, well, for a start, you physically can't carry more than £10,000 across borders. Like it's actually illegal. So if we come back to central bank digital currencies, that's already in place. Like they've already built programmable rules into what we can and can't do with our money.
Mm.
So you can't, if you want to take £10,001 worth of gold with you on a plane to the States, you are breaking the law if you don't declare at both sides that you're doing that. Right? And good luck carrying more than that. Like if you've got £50,000 in gold, gold's really heavy. Like that's like you're not going to put it in your suitcase because it will get stolen. You're not going to
I'm
carry
wearing a
it on your
gold.
person.
I'm wearing gold today, right?
Right.
With my top. I weigh enough, right? Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you. But what if
So
what if it is it for me this is my practical brain coming into play here. I'm thinking, I'm not thinking of running away to America, by the way, if anyone's thinking about this, but you just need to get on the online. So you still, because it's digital. So we still need,
digital,
so, the world okay, the world does go to kaput. We still
right?
need the internet. What then? Like if it is is the gold then better? That's why gold is still has a place. If we didn't have any online, if the whole world went to kaput and we had no digital because we had no power. I don't know. I'm going like completely end of the world apocalyptic thoughts here in my mind, then maybe then gold still has a place because I still have some gold and I can still trade. But then I probably wouldn't be getting a flight to America, right? Let's get real.
If if society breaks to the point where we no longer have electricity, your gold will be worthless because the things that will be important are
Yeah.
food, shelter. That's it. Like
Hmm.
no one's going to trade you the pig that they found for a lump of gold
No,
because the
this is
pig
so
keeps them
true.
alive for a week. So as long as we still have the electricity, then gold and Bitcoin are comparable, but Bitcoin is better in every way. Here's the other thing. Let's say we do get a breakaway from the state, and we say actually we start to create black markets of people who just trade amongst themselves. So they stop trading in fiat currency. We stop. So like I send you a good, you and I trade. I send you something that I've made, this shirt, for example. You like the look of it. You don't want to pay me in pounds. But you've got a £10,000 bar of gold. What are you going to do? Like shave off £100 worth and send it to me? Or you could send me £100 worth of Bitcoin at the speed of light, right? So in literally less than a second, you can send that to me for a pittance. Like it's like I think it's like 0.1% is the fee to use the Bitcoin network or the Bitcoin Lightning network. So it's better than gold in every single way. It's portable, it's fungible. Um, there's a permanent record, right? You can't. So here's the other thing. What if someone paints a bar of tin and then just gold plates it, or has a bar of tin or lead or copper and just gold plates it? And then you are trading with that person. Like I sell you my house for £200,000 of gold. You bring that on a lorry. How
Yeah.
am I verifying that that's true?
Well, we could melt it
Bitcoin.
down, but we've got a really big melter now. And I hear you. I completely hear you, and I completely understand. Do you know what? I was down at Saunton talking about the fact that I'd love to create a a place that we can all live together where I
Mhm,
provide massage to the people because I hate living on my own. I love people. I don't like being on my own, and I want to be able to just go, right, I'm going down to this place for massage right now. I'm going over here. And we're not trading in currency. We're actually just trading in things that we're giving into our little kind of village, if you like. So
mhm.
I'm almost like stepping back in that in my ikigai. I want to step back from society a little bit. And but also then I think it is really beautiful the fact that then whilst we're stepping back, I also have the ability to also be trading and working my magic with my online business in a
Mhm.
network where I'm trading currency and my currency is Bitcoin. That for me feels way more abundant. But I think I still want to have some gold as well. And this is it. This is the word diversification, right? Because one of the things that I think is really important, and this is why I think what you're doing with your personal finance specialist, and because you do have knowledge in pensions and ISAs and you've done your qualifications, like me, ex-chartered financial planner, is that we can create a overall strategy for people where yes, they still have their traditional pensions, they still have these things, but they also are building up those reserves in other things that can give them that overall kind of protection from where the world might head, because we just don't know where the world is really genuinely heading, but we can have a really good steer on it based on what the Fed are actually doing or what governments are actually doing, because they're doing this. When you listen to people like George H. Lewis talking about astrology, they've been using astrology to guide themselves. And so, when you look at kind of high society, they've been using astrology for years. They just don't want us to know about it, really. They don't want
Mm.
the common person to know. They want us to stay in the dark. And this is conspiracy theories. Is it really conspiracy theory? Or is it that they just make us think that we're going mad or batshit crazy? I've stopped using that word for a really long time since my awakening in 2024. I'm going crazy. Like I'm having dark nights of the soul. Nothing makes sense. And it's because the soul is waking up, or we are waking up. The soul is already awake, but the mind and the body is waking up to the fact that we're being sold a big fat lie when it comes to the experience of the human on this world.
Mm.
So it is the way of the world. It is the fact that we have got this massive separation between government and state. And the way of the world in the future is for us to live a wealthy life and for us all to have a stake of the currencies and for us all to have a really good life, because we don't need to have inflation and we don't need to have a cost of living crisis where you can eat in your ivory tower a nice champagne breakfast and I'm over here lucky enough if I can eat out of a tin of beans. And that is my reality right now. Let's be real. Since I've decided to get divorced and go against the grain for
Mhm.
a period of time whilst I make the shift, right? So, oh, sometimes I go off on one and I'm like, I need my brain to catch up because I'm talking from soul. I'm not talking from mind or kind of ego, if you like.
Mm.
It's a great way that you are sharing this into the world. The world really, really does need it, because the way that you describe these things, if I can understand it, anybody can understand it. I really do believe that. And when you came into the Star Portal, the love that I got from the members was phenomenal, because, and I think we then had a big train of people buying Bitcoin, but actually it still fell. We still had a bit of a fall. Why don't you go deeper on that? Let's talk a little bit deeper on some of the things that you're really passionate about, so that people need to know. Why is it so important that people get on purpose and start kind of seeing more of their own inner power so they can go out there and have that impact for themselves and then start trading in currency. Why is the work that you do so it's going to be so important to you and the world, because it is that dual
Mm.
mission, right?
Well, I suppose I can only really speak for myself as a sample of one. Um, but literally until probably 2 months ago, I've kind of felt lost, constantly on this hamster wheel of I need money, I want more money. Money comes and goes. I've been rich, I've been absolutely broke. Um, and neither of them really felt like that hole, that desire for something more was filled. And then literally in the last couple of months, when I'm like, okay, my purpose is to show people the truth of Bitcoin and actually use the word diversification. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But in the last 2 months, when I'm like, okay, so my purpose is I'm going to help people to find their own ikigai, or if they just want financial plans, I'm going to do that as well. That's helping people. I always enjoy helping people. But I'm really going to go and speak to financial advisors about Bitcoin. Now, speaking with financial advisors isn't really top of the list for me. It's not like, oh, that's my purpose in life. But financial advisors are really the gatekeepers to changing the FCA legislation and classification of Bitcoin in this country from a regulated point of view. If they put enough demand on the FCA will change it. And then once we get a change in the FCA classification, my purpose is to tell as many people as possible to buy Bitcoin, paper Bitcoin in an ETF within their tax wrappers, because that's the only way that you can grow your Bitcoin holdings free from capital gains. Now, that's step one. Like ultimately, we want to get people down the road all the way to self-custody, self-sovereignty, cold wallets, multi-sig cold wallets in different geographic locations. But that's, some of that stuff I don't really fully understand, right? So we're talking that's 5, 10 years away until everyone holds literally their entire wealth in this cold storage wallet and they just trade little bits here and there using some apps on their phone, right? But that fills me up with purpose. And I'm like, okay, that I wake up every day with, okay, I know that I just need to go to bed tonight, having moved a little bit closer to that. Whether that's having a conversation with you, having a conversation with a friend, something simple as like if I'm in a coffee shop asking, do you take payment in Bitcoin? The answer is always going to be no. But it's just putting it into the public consciousness that, oh, people are asking to try and pay with Bitcoin using an app on their phone. And that lights me up. I'm like, okay, that's my purpose. And we haven't really had purpose probably since we started working behind computers in actually possibly even since the Industrial Revolution, right? So like once we were working in factories and it just became working, living to work rather than, even when we were peasants and under the feudal system, which was essentially slavery, um, but we still had to wake up every day and grow our own food. Working the land, like that's a pretty good existence. But as soon as we had to go into, factories and just live to work, we haven't really had purpose. And we're getting more and more. You can meet so many folks where the light's just gone out behind their eyes. And this country especially, like you're right. There's something about this country, having lived in Lebanon for 3 years, where everyone was broke because I lived through hyperinflation for 3 years. It wiped out everyone except the 0.1% richest people. Everyone else just went to broke. And yet they're so happy and friendly and welcoming. And in this country, especially, we put a dampener on people. The US is so attractive because they're so positive about everything, right? Yeah, go do it, bro. Whereas in this country, you're right. We have this sort of environment of fear. Everything's so expensive. There's no money. You just live to work. There's no community aspect. The pubs are closing. For all their ills, at least pubs created community. But
Yeah.
now,
You don't have
people,
to drink booze to be in a pub.
yeah, but people can't even afford to just like you. No one in this country, I think, can afford to go to the pub every evening and just have 1 or 2 pints now, right?
Yeah.
That's like 10 quid. It's 10 quid a day. So, we've lost all of that. And so, if people can find something that lights them up, that brings wealth, because wealth isn't money. And I had this discussion with someone. I told them that I was leaving the company that I'm working for. They came through the academy with me, and she was like, I knew you weren't right for this. You think outside the box. You question everything, which they hate. The company we work for, they hated it. I
Yeah.
would question everything, and she was like, I could see you were going to do things outside of this company. I didn't think it would be this quick. And I was just like, well, I came to the conclusion I would rather be broke and talking about Bitcoin than rich and selling my soul. And most of the folks that I've spoken to, or some of the folks I've spoken to within that company, don't focus on the clients. They just focus on themselves. So they focus on just getting 100 clients, earning 100 grand a year, and just telling their clients comfortable lies rather than uncomfortable truths. And I can't do that. My integrity doesn't allow it. And it comes back to my ikigai, which is I would rather speak to someone who is unwilling to talk about Bitcoin and will never change their mind. And I would rather just sit there and be like, you need Bitcoin and here's why, and not earn any money out of it than tell someone I can put you in a 60-40 portfolio, which gets you 4% a year, But by the way, we're debasing the currency at
Yeah,
somewhere between 7 to 10% a
I
year.
love
So
it.
you're literally falling behind every second of every day. You are losing purchasing power in this investment portfolio, which I'm selling to you as this is going to work.
Had an idea for you, Dan. Do you know where you need to have these conversations? In sauna. Okay, I'm going off here. This is what I do, right? I'm thinking of like what my purpose is as well. Like I'm getting lit up by you talking in your lane about so passionately about all of this stuff. My whole energy is vibrating right now because I'm like, when you're in sauna, people come out of their ego. And that is
Mm.
why the Finnish do all of their diplomacy in a sauna. So you need to have a sauna which is like somewhere where people can come in and then you're going to sit there in your sauna and go, right, let me tell you about
Bitcoin sauna.
let me tell you about Bitcoin. Because when I'm in sauna, right, I'm kind of getting a bit famous in sauna. I've got a sauna chat, right, where I'm in sauna chat with some of my friends from that. You would not even put me in that group of friendship group because we're an eclectic mix of amazing souls. And like, I just love the fact that the connections that I've made in sauna. I go into sauna and I start talking about my spirituality, about energy, about all this stuff that you talk about, but I'm talking about my communes and things like that, right? And
Mhm.
they're sat there and I'm going, sorry if like this is too much. And they're going, no, it's amazing. I want to talk about this stuff. People want to talk about it. And when they're in sauna, and it is a place where you drop out your mind and into your body you're more open to it. So maybe you need to
Mm.
find a place where people and maybe this is why, maybe this is why you've got Wild Men project as well. Because you talked about the fact that you run Wild Men project. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that before we've been talking for longer than we thought we would, right? Which is so amazing. But you hold this space for it so it's safe for people to come in, and then you have a safe space for people to hear about the things that they really want to hear about. Because a lot of the time, people aren't open to it or are closed because they don't feel safe. That is the only reason people don't feel safe to talk about their goals, their real goals, especially men. Because if they admit that they don't want what they've been told they have to have, they're gonna, you're selfish. You
Mhm.
aren't delivering. If I'm not bringing in the money and I'm living a life of purpose, but I'm not bringing in the money yet, and I believe it is a big yet for a lot of these things, the shifts that we're seeing, then, I'm the earner. I'm going to get, I can't do the things. I can't step out of selling 40% bond portfolios because I'm not going to give my family what it needs. And therefore, therein lies the problem. So you're creating the space of possibility with the things that you're doing, and you're giving people the safety to open up and really admit what it is that they want. Number one, with purpose and ikigai, and then number two, with the way that they do what they do, or even the currencies that they even then hold for themselves. Because I think some of the time you have to start doing it for yourself, like I've had to. And now I've started, I only own 100 quid a Bitcoin, guys. Now I am a owner of Bitcoin and I can go, I own Bitcoin. I don't need to really admit how much, well, although I just have, but I'm sat here going, I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to start adding more in now. I, I'm really curious, even more so after this conversation, to go deeper. So tell me, let's finish on a real high. Tell me a little bit about what you do with Wild Men, and then I want to know, to finish things off, what's next for you, and how can we find you? So yeah, finish with that, my love.
Sure. Okay, so the Wild Man project was so I actually came into it a little bit later than I wasn't a founder per se, but it kind of already existed and had done for about 3 or 4 months when I found it. But I said that I want to be involved and be a leader within it. So it is a space it's a community of men. We have about 50 men at the moment, um, uh, basically to share. whatever we want, really. So we have different chats within the WhatsApp community. And then we have a weekly challenge, which tends to rotate between physical, emotional, spiritual challenges.
Love that.
Um, we have a monthly men's circle, so we can go and truly open up in a very safe space with no judgment. We have a monthly ruck. So the first Sunday of each month, we put weight on our back and go for a walk together, typically around sunrise. We do a monthly fast, so a 36 to sort of 72-hour fast, or 24 to 72-hour fast, depending on how long people want to get involved. That's on the first of each month. We cleanse at the start of each month. And then we have various get-togethers. So we're doing some Viking rowing, doing a butchery course where we're going to skin a deer and eat the meat. Retreats, all that kind of good, typical spiritual stuff. But it's so needed, and the change in the men like is so profound. Within months, they'll come in and they're just like, oh, this is what it's truly like to have, really open, honest, engaging conversations rather than the bullshit. What happened in the weather? What happened at work? Football, whatever it is. Men typically talk about this. That men will dance around their emotions with even with their closest friends and not really get to the nub of the problem. And whereas we go straight to the problem and say that it's a safe space, you can share whatever you like. No one's going to judge. Um, yeah, so that's where we're at with that. I've actually taken a bit of a back seat from it. So I'm still involved, but I'm not really in the leadership group anymore because I'm launching two new businesses in
So
the
many
next
things
month.
happening, and I hear that,
Yeah.
but it obviously is a really important part of your life, and that's not going to change. Sometimes we don't always have to be the leader, but your influence and impact is massive. And, I just think it's so important that, you get to be men in this world that is like, being really in your manly energy. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. And I love that so much. Some of the things you've talked about, it doesn't attract me at all. I don't want to do those things because I'm a woman. And do you know what? I'm owning my femininity massively. And I think that's in this world where we're told we can't always be men and women as well. Like, I want to be a woman, like fully
Mhm.
in my energy. And the more I step into my own presence, the more I attract in women that are just fantastic as well. My friendships with men and women since I've fully stepped into my own goddess energy has just been incredible. And I think it's just wonderful that you're holding this space for men to come together and do some really cool things. Actually, some of the things did sound really cool, but I think I'd like to go walking without rocks on my back though. I'd love to come walking. I can maybe hold something with on the walk, maybe, but maybe
You
that's
can
the point.
carry all the rocks.
Now I've been carrying all the rocks as a challenge, like Wim Hof. I love that. So what is next for you, my love? It's now that you're pushing yourself forward. What is the next steps for you on your own Ikigai journey?
Great question. So I have a presentation to the Wild Men next week, actually, about personal personal finance best practice. And then I'm hoping to actually take that out to my old network. I used to work in ad tech. So I'm going to go and deliver that for free to as many folks as possible who will listen and then use that as a way to, sort of advertise it's free, it's good free best practice about how to invest and how to manage their own personal finances. But if they have something a bit more complicated to come and work with me on a one-to-one coaching basis. I'm delivering a B2B. I've got my first client, as it were, of an IFA firm. I'm going to deliver the Bitcoin workshop to them some point in the next month or so, with a view to then refining that, getting their feedback, and then I'm launching a, a Bitcoin podcast. It's going to be called, I think, the Bitcoin FA, as in the Bitcoin Financial Advisor. And I already have three confirmed guests, and then I'm going to a conference in April where I drew up a list of like absolute dream boats that I would love to get on this podcast, and about 10 of them are at this conference. So I was like, I have to go to this conference. I don't know, like I'm I'm not that liquid at the moment, so like I'm putting it on credit, and I'm like the universe will sort it out because
Oh,
it's so there is, as I say, there's probably a dozen, if not more, of the absolute, like I drew up this list before I found this conference and then was like, holy shit, they're all going to be in Bedford, and most of them are American. They're all going to be in Bedford. I need to go there. Some of the folks that have already said yes, who are big in the Bitcoin community, they're also going to be there. So I can kind of hopefully leverage that existing network to get these folks, and then with a view to launching that at some point in the next month or two, um, and hopefully getting traction to, as I say, educate financial advisors about Bitcoin, put pressure on the FCA, and then sell my own workshops and training to financial advisors. So I've got all of that going on, and as well as finishing the course with Steve, as well as some other stuff with the Wild Men. So it's
I mean, it's just wonderful, and I just feel blessed to just that you've given me this time today, Dan, because I love you a bit. So I think you're amazing, and I just feel really blessed that we met all that time ago last summer, because I really do believe you are on a journey, and souls meet because we're on this shared journey together. You are me, really. I am you. Expressing God is expressing itself through us, and we have this shared mission in its own little tweaky weaky way of our own little kind of right. Fundamentally, that's it. If someone's listening right now, then Dan, and they are thinking, do you know what I want to know about Bitcoin? I want to know, can they just reach out to you and have a coffee? Will we share your links in the chat below? Because you're on LinkedIn, right? You're Daniel Daniel Parkinson on LinkedIn. They can reach out to you on your website. So we'll drop all your links in the bottom. So if anyone
Mhm.
does want to just talk to you, because a lot of the people that follow me are financial investment managers and people like that, right? So let's be under no
Perfect.
illusion that they need to speak to you if they're feeling curious about any of the things. Is there one
Sure.
final little thing you just want to leave? One bit of magic. I mean, I know
um,
magic to leave the guys today.
sure. This one's a little bit naughty, which is actually no one got wealthy through diversification.
I love it.
When you have asymmetric knowledge or differentiation from the market, you lean into that, and that's what makes you wealthy, right? So that's whether it's your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, whatever it is. Like Jeff Bezos didn't get really rich, and Elon Musk didn't get really rich by trying to do everything. They did one thing really, really well. And then once that had already made them wealthy, they diversified to protect their wealth. So find your ikigai, do that thing really, really well, and the world will reward you for it with wealth. It might also reward you with riches, hopefully both. But with my personal opinion is within investments as well, it's really only going to be Bitcoin. It's
And
returning
I love
7%
that
a
because I
year.
think that sometimes people diversify because they're afraid,
Mm,
right? So they go, okay, I'm going to put a little bit in Bitcoin, but I'm going to keep things over here because it makes me feel safe, right? So
mhm, mhm,
it makes you feel safe to get started and dipping your toe in. Great. Where your energy goes, the money flows, right?
mhm,
So if you believe, and I do believe this, if you believe something's going to be a bad bet, you are right. Because
mhm.
our mind creates our reality. I'm going off on one even deeper here. So I really believe that we manifest our own reality as well. We're creating our own reality. We're expressing, we're playing a little computer game in our own mind, if you want to believe that, right? So let's just go all deep on our ikigai, on our purpose, on our belief. I've shed everything. I've not shared. I mean, you're shed everything to live a life. Everything had to go, right? I was going to say balls deep, and I think that's really rude, actually, isn't it? For like, because I'm not a man, I'm a woman. I've gone all in on my own self to literally peel back all the layers of marriage and mortgages and rent, everything, to go on my purpose and on my mission. And I don't know if it's paying off yet. I cannot sit here and say it's paying off because, from a financial perspective, I am poor as flipping FUCK, right? But I am rich because,
Mm.
quite frankly, I'm having this conversation with you right now because there's only one moment, and it's the present moment, and everything is a gift, and we have to take the gift and take the knowledge. And you're giving so much knowledge here. So thank you so much for giving up your time today.
My absolute pleasure. Anytime.
And if you do want to work, get to know, down on a deeper level, you can work with him, and you can also come into the Star Portal as well. You can come for 1 month, Star 1 month, come into the Star Portal. It's £8 a month, contract free thereafter, to join my community of amazing souls. So thank you so much. Namaste.